Farmaville welcomes you all learning minds to yet another learning video. So in this video, we will learn about the important question and answers related to the HPLC which can be asked to a fresher candidate who is looking for a career in the quality control department. But it doesn't mean that this video is not meant for the experienced candidates. They can also check their knowledge by answering these basic questions related to the HPLC. So with this note, let us dive into the video. Question number 1. What is HPLC? So HPLC stands for High Performance Liquid Chromatography. So it is a powerful analytical technique which is used to separate, identify and quantify components in a mixture based on their interactions with the stationary phase and mobile phase. So here, while answering this question, always remember these three keywords: separate, identify and quantify, because HPLC does these three things only. Now comes the question number 2. So what are the key components of a typical HPLC system? So answer to the question is, a typical HPLC system consists of 4 parts, and those are pump to deliver the mobile phase, an injector for sample introduction, a column containing the stationary phase which is responsible for sample component separation, a detector to measure the analyte signals. So along with these 4 parts, you can mention about data acquisition system, which is nothing but a computer system connected to your HPLC system and which is responsible for the data collection from the detector and processing. Now while answering this question, don't simply say HPLC consists of 4 parts: pump, injector, stationary phase and detector. You have to answer this question smartly by adding function of each part, so that interviewer will come to know that person knows about the functioning of the each part as well. Now comes the question number 3. So what is the role of the stationary phase in HPLC? So answer to the question is, stationary phase is a solid material which is mostly made up of silica. So this silica is packed into a column. So further, during the analysis, stationary phase will interact with the sample components, and based on their chemical and the physical properties, it will cause separation of the sample components. Now comes the question number 4. What is a mobile phase in HPLC? So answer to the question is, mobile phase is a liquid solvent or a combination of the solvents which help in the carrying the sample through the column and facilitate the separation of the components by interacting with the stationary phase. Now comes the question number 5. How does HPLC separates components in a mixture? So answer to the question is, HPLC separates components based on their differential interactions with the stationary phase and the mobile phase. Now the components which are having the stronger interactions with the stationary phase will elute later, whereas the components which are having the weaker interactions with the stationary phase, they will elute early. Now comes the next question. What is the role of a detector in HPLC? So the main role of a detector in HPLC is to measure the amount of analyte which elutes from the column. And the most common detectors which are used in the HPLC are UV visible detector, which is called as UV detector, RI detector, which is called as refractive index detector, fluorescence detector and the mass spectrometry detector. Question number 7. What are the most commonly used modes of the HPLC separation? So answer to the question is, the most commonly used modes of the HPLC separations are reverse phase and the normal phase. Now comes the question number 8. What is the principle of HPLC? So answer to the question is, the principle of the HPLC based on differential interaction of the compounds with the stationary phase and the mobile phase. So while answering this question, you must have to use these two words: differential interaction. So differential interaction means different compounds interact with the stationary phase in different way, and the interaction of the compounds depend upon their polarity and the affinity. So as I said in one of the questions answer that if the compound have more interaction with the stationary phase, then it will elute later, which means it will have longer retention time. Whereas when the compound interaction with the stationary phase is less, then such compounds will elute early, and such compounds will have shorter retention time. Question number 9. What do you mean by normal phase and the reverse phase chromatography? So we know that normal phase and reverse phase chromatography are the most commonly used modes of the HPLC separation. Normal phase and reverse phase differ from each other with respect to polarity of the stationary phase and the mobile phase. So in case of normal phase chromatography, stationary phase is polar and mobile phase is non-polar. Reverse phase chromatography is opposite to the normal phase chromatography, where stationary phase is non-polar and the mobile phase is polar. Question number 10. So while answering previous question, we have used the term polar and the non-polar. So interviewer can ask what are polar and the non-polar compounds. So answer to the question is, polar compounds are those which have positive and the negative charges on their molecules. For example, water is a polar compound. On the other hand, non-polar compounds are those which do not have the separation of the charges within their molecules. For example, hexane is a non-polar compound. So guys, these were the questions related to the HPLC basics which can be asked to a fresher candidate during his or her interview. I have given the text detail of all the questions and answers in the description. So this is it for today. Hope you have found this video helpful. Bye bye and happy learning.